Interact appropriately. When health assistants interact with patients and coworkers, they must be professional and appropriate at all times. This involves being respectful of all people. Health assistants must never be judgmental. Instead, people's differences should be valued. Patient interaction is a part of most health assistants' jobs. Feeling confident, comfortable, and competent during patient interaction takes practice and experience. After all, health assistants must communicate effectively with patients while also providing care. Health assistants must also effectively communicate with their coworkers. Just as with patients, health assistants must put aside all personal prejudice and treat team members fairly and equally so that they can communicate effectively. Click the links below to learn more about interacting appropriately. Courtesy, respect, diversity, sensitivity to boundaries, empathy.
Courtesy. To show courtesy involves being polite and gracious. It also includes helpfulness and consideration. All these attributes are required in the healthcare field. Successful healthcare workers are courteous to their patients and coworkers. Those who show little courtesy towards others will quickly gain a poor reputation. Everyone has a bad moment or even a bad day now and then. However, it is important to overcome personal and other issues unrelated to the job and to focus on performing the work at hand with courtesy. For example, Gina works as a nurse in a family practice. She must get a patient, Edward Moses, from the waiting room and take his vital signs for the physician. She opens the door to the waiting room and calls, "Mr. Moses?" Edward Moses, an elderly gentleman, rises slowly and grasps the walker in front of him. Gina, seeing his approach, opens the door wider to accommodate him and the walker and waits patiently with a welcoming smile until he is safely through the door.
Interact appropriately.
Respect. Respect is an overriding theme in any study of communication in healthcare. Respect is to approach another person with a feeling of esteem or regard. Healthcare workers must show respect towards patients and coworkers and their differences. Without proper respect, communication can quickly veer towards failure. When people are not treated with respect, they tend to withdraw from the conversation. For example, Gina directs Mr. Moses to the second door on the left. He continues past this door. Gina realizes that he hasn't heard her instruction. Patiently and sincerely, she says a little louder, "Mr. Moses, we'll be in this room today." He hears her this time and turns around and enters the correct room.
Interact appropriately.
Diversity. Healthcare workers continually encounter patients and coworkers of diverse backgrounds. When dealing with people who are different from themselves, healthcare workers must put aside all personal and cultural bias. They must treat all people fairly, equally, and with sensitivity. Healthcare workers must be aware that others have cultural and personal biases as well. Their biases may affect how they interact with healthcare workers who are diverse from them. However, in patient situations, the greater responsibility lies with the healthcare workers. They must always be on guard against unjustified differences in care based on any form of diversity. Diversity, or variety, occurs in many forms. Diversity includes the following: race, gender, age, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, occupation, health status, religion, sexual orientation.
Interact appropriately.
Sensitivity to boundaries. Sensitivity is the ability to see and appreciate the personal traits of others. Specifically, sensitivity to boundaries is the ability to recognize and observe the emotional and physical limits of others. Healthcare workers must be sensitive to their patients' boundaries. Crossing these boundaries can occur with something as simple as using a patient's first name rather than addressing them as Mr. Smith or Mrs. Brown. Crossing boundaries can also occur if a healthcare worker stands too close to a patient or touches a patient without asking permission first. For example, when it is time to take Mr. Moses' blood pressure, Gina realizes that he must remove his jacket first. She asks him, "Mr. Moses, I need you to take off your jacket so that I can take your blood pressure. May I help you remove it?" He thankfully agrees.
Interact appropriately.
Empathy. Empathy is the ability to share in someone else's feelings or emotions. Empathy is a trait of successful healthcare workers. Countless situations with patients require empathy. Patients who are lonely or facing serious surgeries or terminal illnesses are in special need of empathy. For example, when talking with a patient who has recently found out about a terminal illness, a healthcare worker might say something such as, "Mrs. Winters, I'm so sorry that you and your family are facing this situation.